How negative media headlines about small boat crossings are turning Brits against all migrants. I'm going to read into this more from Byline Times, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an article from Byline Times with a headline of how negative media headlines about small boat crossings are turning Brits against all migrants. The new research finds that disproportionate coverage of relatively low numbers crossing the English Channel is turning British people against all incomers. Guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button, share this across social media so others are notified of this video. So we know one of the biggest issues that we have in the UK is, of course, the cost of living crisis. Is one of the biggest issues right now because people just don't have means to live. Housing is a major issue, of course. Our crime is out of control. Our healthcare is in need of fixing. And the reality is all these things take time. And whether or not the government does that, obviously, can make those things happen as well. But one thing that's definitely become a bigger topic than it needs to be over the last 10 years or so is migration. And yes, you heard what I said. It's a bigger issue than it needs to be because we still have we're still not at the top of the list when it comes to people who migrate to Europe. We're still not at the top of the list. I think we're still from last I checked, we were mid-table. We're not at the bottom, but we're certainly not at the top of the list when it comes to migrants when they come to Europe and where they normally claim asylum. It's normally the likes of Italy, Spain, Greece, somewhere along those lines at some of the countries there. We know obviously Germany took an influx, but they've massively slowed that down obviously over the last several years, of course. But in order for the migrants to come to the UK, they obviously have to cross through all these European countries to come to us. Now, that being said, the numbers in comparison, like I said, to other countries is lower. However, it's also important to point out that because we are multiculturalism, we have lots of different people from different backgrounds, nationalities, religions, and whatnot. Because that's what makes Britain great. Because we have so many different people from different backgrounds and whatnot. We have this. What's being created here is this image that all migrants are bad, that any migrants that come across on the boats in particular are bad people, that they're all terrible, nasty, evil people, that they're all coming to take our jobs, take our livelihoods, and do all sorts of nasty things to us. Basically, it's the premise that is being pictured by the tabloids, by the right-wing media, by certain politicians. That is the picture that is being painted, right? That's the picture being pictured, and it's really important to understand as well, especially if you're somebody who's never worked with migrants or never worked with different people of nationality. When you only taking most of your information from selected medias, selected people online, and not actually met a migrant, not actually talked to people of a different skin color or of a different nationality or background, and you've only if you've lived a certain lifestyle, your premise is, of course, is that you think that when you see consistently day after day, week after week, the headlines about migrants constantly come crossing over, it builds up this perception within your mind, and it's very, very good by the media. It builds up this perception, well, the media, tabloids, politicians, certain politicians build up this perception that you have that all these people are bad. They're all coming to take my job. I don't want them taking my job. I don't want them taking my livelihoods, and they perceive that all these people. The perception is that all these people that come to the UK, they're all taking up the hospital beds, that they're all taking up taxis, that they're all taking up hotels, that they're taking up all the spaces in the classrooms, that they're taking up literally everything. That's the perception that's being painted at you. Okay? Now, there is a small percentage of them that are doing that. There's no argument about that. Are they having a factor on our education, on our migrants who come to the UK? Are they having a factor on our education? Yes. On our hotels? Yes. On crime and whatnot? Yes. But are they the main reasons that we are in this cost of living crisis? No, they're not. It is what happened with Brexit. It's what happened with the pandemic. What's happened with the Ukraine war. It's what happened with austerity. These are the main factors that have led us into the position where we are, where bills cost more than they used to. Everything costs more. Our lives are not as good as it used to be. We can't travel to Europe and just literally cross in like we used to. No, we have to go through barriers and whatnot. Well, they're reducing that now, thanks to the Labour government. Are making small changes to make that easier for us. But you can see how difficult all these things have happened over the last 10 years. But what the media, the tabloids and everything want you to say is that, no, it's not because of Brexit, it's not because of COVID, it's not because of the Ukraine war, it's not because of conservative imposing austerity on you and making your lives worse. It's none of those things. No. It's because of these people who you don't know nothing about their livelihoods, who are getting on a small dinghy boat, coming to the UK, who want to seek a better life and better opportunity for themselves. That's what they're telling you. They're telling you that all their problems resolving around a man and maybe perhaps women with their children on that boat who want to come to the UK. And from their perception is that whether they have friends or family, or that they see the UK as a great country, a great nation. The United Kingdom is a great place for opportunities for people to make something of themselves, and we want to contribute to society. Now, does every single migrant have that ambition? No. But a majority of them say that they want to come, they want to work, they want to make a living. But because of the system that we have, because there were changes to the asylum system, they can't work. That's right, they cannot work. They cannot work unless their application has been accepted. So they are being processed. So that means they can't work for a living while their asylum claim is being processed. So what does that mean? That means that they can't buy anything. They can't do anything. They have to be provided by you, the taxpayer, a mobile phone so that they can be contacted, accommodation, food, drink, as basic essential needs that any human being would want. That has to come all out of the taxpayer. Now, let me ask you something. Would you rather it come out of your taxpayer money, or would you prefer them working for a living, which they want to do, rather than them relying on the taxpayer? I think you know the answer to that, don't you? And by the way, that doesn't necessarily mean that and this assumption that, but if we give them jobs, if we allow asylum seekers to claim jobs while their claim is being processed, they could run onto the black market. There's always a risk there with these things, yeah. But would you rather them work and earn a living, earn accommodation, earn drinks and beverages, like you who works a 9-to-5 job or 12-hour job, whatever your job is? Would you not rather that these asylum seekers, whether their application gets accepted or rejected, would you not rather they work for a living, contribute to the UK economy while also earning a living for themselves? Would you not prefer that, rather than it coming out of you taxpayers, because you're always kicking and screaming about lots of money being wasted on asylum seekers, right? So that's just something I wanted to put into your minds as well. But you notice how they never talk about that. They never talk about like how we should put them to work, that we could have them working for a living and earning their own income while they wait. But we never seem to talk about that anymore. Wonder why. And as far as them coming across the boats and how we stop them, I've said this before and I've said this again, safe and legal routes. You need to have safe and legal routes for people to come to the UK so they can claim their claim asylum. As long as there is no safe and legal routes, unless you're from Ukraine, unless you are from Hong Kong, there's no safe and legal route. There are some exemptions in Afghanistan and one or two other nations, I believe. But barring that, there's no safe and legal route for people to come to the UK. And for those saying, you could just hop on a plane or get on the boat and come across. No, it's not as simple as that. They can't just turn up on a plane and a boat and say, I want to go to the UK. What's your reasons? They can't just turn up and just cross over. That's not how it works. And get on a plane or get on a boat. It's not as simple as that. They have literally nothing. They can't just pay and then cross. It's not as simple as that, guys. So all these things, right, paints these pictures that these are all bad people. And I'm telling you that they're not bad people. There's a minority that are bad. But guess what? There's also people in our society that are bad people as well. It's really important for you to understand that and not just assume that everybody who's coming across is bad people. Not all migrants are bad. They really are not. And by the way, we were once the British Empire. Our empire was literally built on migrants. You do well to remember that, right? So media reporting of small boats crossings appear to be reducing support for all forms of immigration, even for those groups who arrive in the UK through regular approved routes, new research suggests. Migrants arriving by small boats make up to just 2% of all immigration in the UK, but have become dominant in the coverage of migration issues over recent years. However, a new working paper for the Centre of Competitive Advances in the Global Economy, CAGE, of the University of Warwick, seen by Byline Times, finds even small increases in the coverage of small boat crossings reduce overall support for immigration, helping to drive hardline anti-migrant policies affecting all migrant groups. The highly visible migration stories can drive major shifts in public opinion and policy through media amplification, which efforts varies dramatically based on people's media consumption and preferences, the author finds. The paper, led by the University of Birmingham Assistant Professor Dr Apurav Bhatiya, I'm going to mispronounce the name and I apologise, uses the British election study mass polling of Brits alongside data on irregular, often dubbed illegal small boat crossings across the Channel to trade the impact of media coverage on Brits' views on immigration. Until now, researchers have lacked evidence on how the visibility of irregular entries to Britain shapes the public's response. But the analysts find that the unauthorised entry, even from genuine asylum seekers, can trigger sharper backlash than illegal migrations rather than generate broader spillovers, including declining support from legal migration pathways. And media reporting plays a major role in that. The new research focus on small boat crossings in the English Channel, a potentially charged and visibly prominent form of entry into the UK, often gives front-page treatment by UK papers. And this is the problem. This is why we need media reform, because they consistently paint this picture. Although these crossings account for a small share of overall immigration, that's around 2%, they receive disproportionate media and potential and political attention. Daily arrival figures are regularly reported in major news outlets in both offline and online, and even small fluctuations and often features in headlines, allowing for high-frequency public exposure, the authors note. The decline in support for immigrants following the rise in small boat crossings is largest against foreign students, followed by non-EU workers, family migrants and EU workers. The decline in support for the type of immigration is actually the smallest for asylum seekers following a surge in small boat crossings. 18 to 35-year-olds showed the strongest negative response for all age groups to reporting about small boat crossings. It suggested the effects of negative coverage spread widely through Britain's broader media ecosystem, particularly on social media. Of all social classes, the strongest declines in immigration support in the days following high numbers of small boat crossings that are seen among economically vulnerable groups, especially those who are not in work or who are on low incomes. The decline in immigration support is mostly pronounced amongst readers of right-leaning newspapers, but consumers of left-leaning outlets show a mild increase in support in the days after small boat surges. Left-leaning news sources are more likely to focus on the human and individual stories behind the crossings, whereas right-leaning ones focus on alleged security risk or frame the migration as some kind of invasion, which is not. The University of Warwick paper notes that previous studies show that the public perception of immigration levels are often exaggerated and only weakly correlated with actual migration statistics. These misinterpretations are shaped more by media framing, political discourse, and symbolic cues than by local migration levels or hard facts they write. Media coverage influences public attitudes not only by shaping what issues people think about, but how they think about them, through framing, selective emphasis, and narrative cues, the authors add. In other words, the language used in the media reports the often chosen, the fact that it is treated as a front-page issue, all have a role in shaping the public's perception and fears. Remember, this is thrown right at your face all the time, 24/7, when there is just as much other stuff to be talking about, but they intentionally throw this media at you. Although they account for a small fraction of total migration, fewer than 37,000 individuals were detected in 2024, compared to over 3 million legal entrants. Their visibility and symbolic weight gives them disproportionate influence over public perception. Small boat crossings are often framed as a loss of control over borders, triggering policy responses from government that do not necessarily match the scale of the problem. Media plays a central role in shaping how these events are interpreted. We treat media not as passive filters, but as active amplifiers that link discrete incidences to wider inbred about immigration and control. Looking at data from 2018 and 2024, the paper finds that highly visible irregular migration events may have contributed to more restrictive immigration climate effects, not just the so-called illegal migration, but other routes. Keir Starmer's government has, like his Conservative predecessors, responded to the public backlash against groups like foreign students and family migrants with policies that restrict these flows. In April 2024, the minimum income threshold for sponsoring a partner or a family visa was raised from $18,600 to $29,000, significantly reducing people's eligibility. And since 2024, the most international students have been restricted from bringing family members to the UK unless they are enrolled in postgraduate research or funding programs. The data suggests that right-leaning outlets amplify negative responses to migrants, while left-leaning media can buffer them, but only among those that are not already concerned about immigration. And it highlights the risk of ideological polarization, where groups interpret the same events, though incompatible lenses, and end up seeing different things. Where public debates are shaped by divergent framings rather than shared facts, consensus become harder to reach, the research notes. It's very hard. Don't get me wrong. This research is very fascinating. It's very hard to know for like polling data really indicates like what people's main factors when it comes to the main issues that they are feeling in the UK. It's hard to make that. It's hard to say that it's not a case that every single person is upset about migration, but the majority of the public are having this perception thrown in their faces, whether it's left, right, leaning, whatever. It's consistently been talked about, and the likes of Nigel Farage and Reform UK always hammer it out, always bring it up constantly. Yeah, how often have you come across media where they're not talking about immigration? They're always talking about it all the time, but yet 20, 30 years ago, we weren't always hearing about it, was you? Because there were other things going on in the world. There were other things that needed to be talked about. But you're having this thrown in your face consistently over and over and over again. And this factor, for me, is another reason why a lot of people don't have trust in the mainstream media, because they simply follow the narratives of politicians all the time, rather than looking at the facts. And facts really do matter. But we don't always rely on facts. We just, a lot of it is a case of opinion pieces. Nigel Farage says something controversial. Everyone blows up about it and everyone talks about it. Everyone just has podcasts and analysts and they start analysing everything because Nigel Farage says something controversial. Oh, that's big news. Put it on the front page, like, because everyone needs to hear it. When you should actually be told, hey, we're still in a cost of living crisis. Bills are going up massively. What's the government doing about it? Sort of thing. And by the way, you didn't always get that under the Conservatives. Under Labour, it's different. But you never were getting that under the Conservatives, you know. But you get my point. At least I hope you do. But what do you honestly think? What do you guys make of this negative media headlines, the attitude around immigration? What's your perception of immigration? What you and conversations that you've had with people about immigration as well? Generally interested to hear your thoughts. Do you honestly think that immigration is the be all and end all, or there are other factors in play that I've talked about? Let me know your thoughts and more on all this down in the comments below. Now, if you found this video interesting, informative, or helpful in any way, shape, or form, hit the like, share, subscribe button if you can. Check out Rumble and Patreon for exclusive content. And if you want to financially support me in the work that I do here, you can click the join button down below to become a YouTube member. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.